Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Tech Shift F9 podcast. I'm your host, Maurizio, and this week I'm really excited about having two special guests on the podcast. We're going to have Dr. Pauldy Otermans and Dev Aditya, both from the Otermans Institute, doing incredible cutting-edge work in the world of artificial intelligence, particularly coupled with education. Pauldy, Dev, thank you for coming on board. Really appreciative.
Thanks for having us. It's an absolute pleasure.
So obviously, I gave a very quick intro to yourselves. Is there something that you would like to add about yourselves before we get going with some tough questions?
Sure. So I think I'll start and then hand over the baton to Pauldy. I'm Dev Aditya. I'm one of the co-founders of the organization, the startup, and I literally look out for the AI architecture. I head the AI wing of the organization and also the business side. And I think what's interesting for your audience here, obviously, reinventing the career for tech. My career began in law, and I am actually self-taught in AI before I went on to do my research with the Pauldy Institute, Brunel University, London, etc. So I think I sort of have within myself a complete experiential shift in what I used to do to what I do now. And since I've shifted, I've gone on to become, a global young innovator, been nominated and awarded globally. And obviously, I'm very happy to be working in this very exciting field at this time.
Wonderful. Pauldy.
Yes, thank you. Lovely to be here today. I'll also briefly introduce myself. I also don't have let's say, a stereotypical AI background. I'm actually by background, a cognitive neuroscientist. That's what I did my PhD in, quite a few years ago now. And before that, I actually did biophysics, neuroscience, then moved on. I did a bit of neuromarketing, neuroconsumer research, and then sort of moved into the field of more education. So yes, that also involved teaching, but very much an educationist doing research on pedagogical ways of how can we improve teaching and learning, assessments, entire student experience, how can this be looked at from all different angles? And then I thought, well, what about AI's use in education? So shifted completely my focus onto that in the recent years. And now that's my driving force also behind the organization. I look very much after the pedagogical tools that we are looking at, the research angles that come from that, from a human-centered design, psychology, neuroscience point of view. So that's how we sort of combine the two of us within the organization as well, but both from a very different background, I would say. So both pivoted quite a lot.
And that's wonderful because clearly you're coming at it from very different angles. So you're being able to add very different perspectives. But one thing that bothers me a little bit about artificial intelligence these days is that the term is being a little bit overused and everything is being labeled as AI. Even a chatbot with your bank app is AI. No, it really isn't. So what's attracted you, just big picture wise, to change your careers and move into AI?
So I'll start this one, Pauldy, if that's okay. So in 2020, we started our company, and we were what you would call a traditional edtech company. So we were providing teaching across the world, teacher-led, so not recorded videos. And within a year, we were in 11 countries. We scaled very fast. And actually, the biggest problem we had in this scaling, where we found the bottleneck, was scaling the teacher or the trainer. Because no two human beings teach in the same way, quality control, hiring them, etc. And also remember, we were in the middle of the pandemic and lockdowns at that time because we registered in 2020. So to solve our own problem, we first used AI because, that was the closest to intelligence that we could get, and to see if AI could be used to become a teacher or trainer, or at least become part of a teacher or a trainer. And in 2021, we created our first MVP, which actually taught refugee learners in Iraq, and that gave us the sort of light bulb moment that this can work. And since then, it has become our core focus because we are probably the pioneers in the world trying to digitize and scale teaching, because everybody does content. So content and teaching being your two pillars of education, teaching not really so much. And we started this pre-ChatGPT, pre-generative AI for the public, right? So that's sort of what got us into this field. Pauldy, I don't know if you want to add something.
I think, no, just adding to what you said, coming back to Mauritius' question, yes, I think AI has indeed become a buzzword, and one has to be really careful when one speaks about AI that there is no, I guess, misconception of what you actually mean, because as you said, the chatbot in your bank app, well, that's not really indeed the case. So it's always good to, whenever I speak about it, really trying to clearly explain what it is that we do, and also hearing from someone else, how are they using the word AI, and actually building more awareness. And that's some of the research we also do within our organization, looking at what people's perspectives are actually on AI in terms of what they understand behind it. What do they think AI is? And yeah, some of these examples then also come to play. So I think there is a lot of awareness that can be done as well in terms of teaching and educating people on the different fields, so to speak, within AI and what it actually can mean in your daily life. So that's something we're also looking at from a more awareness point of peace, so to speak. But I definitely agree with you.
And Paul, on that point, I have a feeling, a distinct feeling, that what we're seeing today is the beginning of the AI becoming an infrastructure, just like broadband is. Unlike some other thoughts out there that see AI as an additional piece of technology. No, I think it's going to be something embedded in pretty much everything we do. And you're doing it in an area of education and teaching, which is, I would say, at a fairly early stage in their development. But do you share some of these thoughts, or do you see still AI as primarily something that is an add-on to the business of education?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I think that AI will indeed, or is already, depending on where you are, I guess, on the spectrum of AI usage skills, the tools you've already developed, it will be just become part of our daily lives. Like we have, if you ask this question in 10-year times, people will be like, what you talking about? This is just normal. We do this all the time. The word co-pilot is probably have changed into a different word at that time, as we just embed it within our daily lives and don't even think about it anymore. Because now people are very conscious when they're using AI tools. Oh, I'm using AI, and the alarm bells ring. Whilst probably in, well, 10, I'm saying 10, I actually think much sooner, maybe 3, 4, 5 years, people are not even thinking about that usage anymore. It just becomes part of your life. So I think that's very, very true. Now, in terms of education, I do think that this field is even maybe more cautious, because we're often thinking about, thousands and thousands of learners at different institutions, globally around the world. And if you look at where AI has already been implemented, in healthcare, it seems to be, for instance, much more implemented already in other fields and industries as well. And education seems to be the one that is open about it, has had lots of discussions about it, but the implementation is not so much there yet. And that's obviously
Right.
where we want to try and make a change, because the learners of today will be the ones that will be, well, more habitual with these tools in a few years' time. So it's very important that they understand what these tools are, how to use them, the risks, the advantages, disadvantages, and that it really becomes embedded within their daily routines for whatever job they may want to do later. So I think it's really important to embed it in education right from the get-go. Dave, I
Yeah,
think
and
you also wanted to add something.
yeah, and I just wanted to, very briefly touch on this thing about AI, especially where we are now today. AI is a cross-industry, cross-application technology. Unlike a lot of the technological booms we've had over the past decade and a half, it's literally going to be changing everything we do, because it's a different system and a different style of doing. And one of the examples that I hear once in a while in the space, I actually agree with. In a way, it's like electricity, because it's going to power a lot of the things that we are habitually doing in a different way. It's going to obviously skyrocket those. You might still be doing the same thing, but the impact that it can give to that service will be, 5x or 10x higher. And that's because it is fundamentally changing the way that thing is done, rather than coming in as a top layer thing, which is something new. It is a foundational thing.
Now, I completely agree. But the one thing that I would like to understand a little bit more in terms of what you're doing, I mean, you are running a business, you have a nascent product that is being developed to tackle something that isn't being tackled, right? But education is very sensitive. And I'm not even going to get into the political situation happening in countries, but purely from an ability to shape the young minds, particularly in an early age. there's a tendency and a fear, perhaps. And I'm a father, my kids are all in college, and one of the big fears is they stop thinking, right? They stop thinking for themselves. They stop being genuinely academically challenged because everything is easy with the technology. I'm not just talking about AI. Now, obviously, this is a little bit of a, Luddite, perhaps, view of the world, but I would like to understand how are you using AI in a way that you feel will be not only producing a product that the market wants, but producing a product that can change how a whole industry operates.
So I'll start this one, and then Pauldy, please feel free to jump in. This is a very broad question, so I'm just going to go with three key points that I think everybody should think about when they're thinking about AI in education. So first of all, we need to really stretch the timeline slightly, right? If we are comparing with 5 years ago, or for a young parent, what they did when they were in university first year, it may seem like, it's sensitive, it's really changing the system. But if you just draw the line to 100 years, just 100, 120 years ago, the majority of your population was still sort of associated with farming. Today, in this country, in the UK, majority is, associated with the service sector. So things absolutely change. This is a change wave that is coming. That's number one. And and to be honest, when was the last time we actually looked at actively changing the education system? Changing, not adding and, just slightly maneuvering it. So this is probably that opportunity. So that's number one. The second one is, from the point of AI as well. What I say is, today, for the first time, this is only generative AI. AI has different aspects. Generative AI, for the first time, machine has been able to understand and actually, in its own rights, conquer language. Now, language is the spinal cord on which human civilization and society works, right? For the first time, something alien has been able to work with that. Now, that creates a lot of change, and actually that change is how we interact with each other and with machines and with society at large. So in a way, you don't need to be a hardcore coder anymore. AI can do a lot of that for you, Copilot, etc., and it's going to do most of that for you. So your human characteristics, so when some of us fear that it might make you lazy, or it might actually take your human characteristics away, it actually might make you want to learn them more. So the three most important skills, I think, in the next 5 years that's coming, comes back to the 3 C's. It's critical thinking, right? What is the AI generating for me? Is it right or wrong? We need to decide that. It comes back to that. The second one is creativity. The AI can do almost anything that you want it to do now. It's much easier. You don't need to know coding, etc., right? Because you can use a lot of these tools. You can have no-code, low-code solutions powered by AI. But it will do what you want it to do. So creativity still lies with the human beings. And the third one, the most important factor, is now you can talk to a machine. You can prompt them, right? You prompt them to do something. The better your communication skills, the better you prompt them, the better is the output. If your communication is poor, your output is poor. It's as simple as that. And the final part here, again, is human in the loop, which all of these three support. Even in our case, we use AI teachers that can create your teaching content, that can create your tests, that can grade them, that can motivate you, etc. But they still are connected to a dashboard which a human overlooks. You want to change an example. You think something is not exactly what you want to teach them as an institution or as a teacher. You can change them. And that's because of the 3 C's that you command, not the machine. Pauldy, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I was also going to talk about the 3 C's, but the other thing I want to add is I really believe it's quite crucial that learners from a young age start working with these tools. Now, it could be in a playful way when they're, very young age, but then when they reach a bit more of a mature age, really understand how they can embed them in, daily life, but also professional life. Because the skills that employers are going to look for, no matter sort of what field you're going to get into as a graduate, or, as a person who's looking for a job, they will require you, or they will expect you to be able to use certain of these tools. So I think, when I was at university and at school, we were very much taught you need to use Microsoft Word to write your assignments. You need to use Microsoft Excel to do these analyses, and you need to use Microsoft PowerPoint to make your presentations. Now, if no one had ever taught me how to do that, it would have been very difficult when I did my first sort of part-time job to do that job, because I was required to use Excel. So I would have been really stuck. I probably wouldn't have gotten a job because I couldn't showcase that I could use Excel. And I think that's similar when we're thinking about these AI tools. The sort of the earlier we can embed them, and maybe in a playful way, and when they're very young, to actually, these are the benefits. This is how you could use them. Here are examples. Practice. I mean, you cannot break an AI, right? You cannot break the system. It's not that you can really do something awfully wrong, but learn and see what comes up. And the more we do that, the more people potentially, hopefully, will be less afraid of it, because that's one of the other areas that people are, right? Oh, I'm afraid that this is going to take over the world. But I think the skill sets we are going to have to develop with the learners of, well, current age or the current era where we're in, need to have these different types of skills that they've mentioned. So I think it's crucial. Let's embed as soon as possible, as early as possible.
And right on that point, Pauldy, both you and Dev pointed out that we have this need for AI through, let's call it the educational life cycle and beyond. But you're choosing to focus on one particular age group or utilization. And can you expand a little bit on that and why you made that choice?
We are actually content agnostic, so we focus very much on teaching, not even education as a whole. Everybody creates content today. ChatGPT can create unlimited content for you today. That's not our main area. Our main area of focus is teaching. How can the AI better understand every student at a personal level it works with? How can it give them the best content they need to learn? How can it motivate them? How can it work through with them until they have absolute clarity in the learning process? And also, how can they give all of that data to their human teachers and supervisors so that they know where to support them further, which a machine cannot, right? So that's our absolute area of focus. Coming back to your question again, we are content agnostic. We can teach almost anything. And with that sort of thing, because we have built our own fine-tuned foundational models, we have products at the moment catering to the age groups of 3 to 7, 3 to 9, and then we have 14 and above. The middle part will be filled out. So it's not that we're looking at one age. We're looking at teaching human beings as a whole. Mm-hmm. And at one point we would, wouldn't it be nice if you had a teacher who from the age of 3 worked with you and understands you better than anybody else? So even when you're 40
Absolutely.
and you skill, it's there. So that's what we are trying to build. Pauldy, do you want to add something to that?
Sort of no matter what age you are, we also very much embrace the concept of lifelong learning. So no matter how old you are, what you want to learn, we have it. You can use the teacher to do so. So for us, it doesn't really matter where you're from, what your background is, as long as you're willing to learn. Well, let's learn together, basically.
Now, let's dig in a little bit into you two. I'm fascinated by your professional story, about what you're doing together. You had mentioned you come from very different backgrounds. But starting off, I believe you met at Brunel University. And how does the world of academics usually cope with new technology? And how have you used that experience perhaps to shape what you're doing with your business?
Yeah, I think that's I'll just kick off, Dave. I think that's an interesting question as it's related to academics, sort of what my background. I think when it comes to AI, comparing to any other technology that sort of came into the world of education, there is a much more diverse and broader sort of spectrum of where people lie with their opinions and views. When virtual learning environments came, people are, yes, this is great, this is amazing. When we were able to, record teaching sessions, yes, this is great, helps with accessibility. There was always people that said no and people said yes, but people were almost, behind these ideas. Now, when it comes to AI, if you look at the sort of the UK national, and I'm involved in some of these wider discussions, and also recently, even this week, talked about it at a conference where we then shared and had many, many great discussions. It is very, very much love it, need to do everything we can, absolutely hate it. No way my students are allowed to use AI. Right. So it is very, very different from anything before. Having said that, when you go deeper into these discussions with, particular people, a lot of them themselves now need to learn. And that's for some people also a bit scary. This is very new for everybody. So, and it's for some people very difficult. They find it difficult to learn because the students also can do so many things with it. So now the relationship almost between sort of a teacher or the facilitator and the student is no more as such for the majority of academics that the teacher is the expert, because
Right.
there are not that many AI experts in the academic field yet out there. That is very limited, but all students, no matter what discipline they're in, are thinking about, oh, I want to use AI or generative AI for my assignments or for my teaching and learning. So that gap is not as big, so to speak, as it normally is, where the academic is the expert and the student is really learning. We're almost learning all together in an academic sense. And that sometimes for some people is also a bit scary. So, but again, by educating my awareness, by participating in conversations like these and other academic conferences, I think we will together, academics will sort of figure it out and propose different solutions. And you can already see that different institutions have tackled it in a different way. Some are very much open to using the tools, and some are a bit skeptical and say, let's see what's going to happen in a year, and if we will subscribe. But Dave, I think you also wanted to add something to this.
Yeah, and I think it's very vital to make this clear for everybody, which is today, because ChatGPT is probably the product that made AI really public, right? It made AI a layman's thing. A lot of people think AI is generative AI. Generative AI is a prediction model for language, period, right? But AI, there is so much more. So when AI, traditionally, in data, when you're being able to use AI and pinpoint people's different positions in their learning journey, predict what grades they can get, etc. At that point, academics are not that scared because it is very much, similar to previous systems. When it comes to generative AI, the excitement around it, etc., is where this actual conversation is. AI, I love it or hate it. That most of them are talking about generative AI, not AI as a whole. And I'll just go, because obviously Pauldy's talked about the academic side of it. I'll just go with a few lines on the philosophical side of it. This is because, again, it's that language piece, right? Previously, any kind of technology that came in, it helped them. So let's talk about email, right? I can now talk to all of my students in the fraction of a second, right? I can bulk email them. They no longer need to come to my office and give me papers. They can upload it onto a system and I can look at it in a system at home or at a different time. I don't need to be there. All of these things helped them, right? End of the day, it was the same relationship. It just amplified the efficiency in which they were doing it. Everybody loved it. But for the first time, using generative AI, now this system can do something exactly that this person does, or in certain cases more. And that's where it sort of shifts the paradigm that was there, and it will align again, because that's what humans do. We're going to align again and get to know how to understand and use it best. But as of now, there is a paradigm shift, because using these tools, you can do what the lecturer does or do things that nobody expects. It's not the same system that you're amplifying, the system changes. And I think that's why there is this debate.
Those are great points. And going a little bit deeper into yourselves, I'm fascinated by your working relationship. I'm intrigued by it. I've been in the world of startups for several years now, and I understand how important the chemistry between founders is, and the different skills they bring to the table. But you have an academic here, an entrepreneur, very different backgrounds. How are you guys making it work?
It is an interesting question. You don't often see those particular backgrounds being merged. However, from an organization point of view, we're very research driven and research centered, not just in user tested research, but very much in the models that we're using. So within the AI and tech team, in the marketing team, in the research team, and very closely connecting all of these. Everybody talks on a daily basis, and no one is really in isolation as a, I don't know, department or team. And I think by looking at most things that we do from a very research angle and from a human-centered design point, where a lot of my work comes in, connecting that with the AI and the technology side of things, where sort of Dave comes in, I think it works. I think it's just a really good fit.
Right.
We can see it in the way the products are developing and what the users are saying. But it also, of course, has its challenges. But I think that's with any business. There will always be challenges along the way. But we've made it work.
Yeah, and just to add to that, firstly, I think both of us, because we are the two co-founders, so at this level and obviously with the rest of the team, we complement each other's weaknesses and strengths. Absolutely. So whilst I look at the vision, Pauldy looks at the operations. Without Pauldy, half of the things wouldn't be moving. Sometimes there are questions that I need to answer. Without Pauldy's research-driven feedback on what users actually want, whatever we tried to build in the tech team wouldn't probably be such a good fit, right? So we make these work, and it's all about complementing. And I think the area of AI itself is a very good example of that. I tell people AI is not computer science. There's computer science and there is AI, because AI is a cross-disciplinary sort of area. It's got a lot of human-centered design. It's got a lot of psychology. It's got a lot of math. It's got a lot of neuroscience, and you sort of put it all together with data science and computer science. So it is cross-disciplinary. And today, I think the best teams in the world working on AI are cross-disciplinary. And if I remember a data point correctly, I think the top two disciplines that are actually working in AI right now are not computer science. They are physics and maths, pure physics background, pure maths, because it's a lot of philosophical and very base level scientific work that's happening, and that's what's causing the breakthrough.
Yeah, and that's what you also see reflected in our team. It's very interdisciplinary. People from different backgrounds working together, sort of with the same goal in mind. And I think that has led us to what we have achieved so far, the different perspectives that everybody brings to the table and the contributions that everybody can make. So we'll keep being interdisciplinary moving forward, definitely.
And reflecting a little bit on the idea of self-improvement and keeping up with what's going on. I mean, you're working now at the bleeding edge of technology at a time where we're changing potentially the way we educate children and adults, perhaps too. And we could have a whole conversation about that. However, how do you strategize about ensuring that you're keeping up with what's going on in the world of AI, in the world of education? And the reason I'm coming to you with this question is I see a lot of anxiety in people of a certain age that are perhaps in a field that is changing a lot or thinking about joining it because they're attracted, but there's fear about how to cope with all that is going on. And I wonder how you're doing it.
For me, it's like keeping up to date. I subscribe to specific AI in education, like newsletters, follow stuff on social media, but also very much engaging in academic conferences or generally conferences and events that are done globally on the field of AI education. And you can see now that this is actually becoming a field. As Dave said, AI, people saw it as the computer science, and there was very much computing AI events and conferences globally. Now you see this move towards particularly focused conferences and events on AI in education, and attending those, presenting at those, discussing with peers and collaborators. For me, that's one of the ways, or potentially the best way to keep up, as well as listening to TEDx talks and these things. I don't know, Dave, I think you have a slightly different strategy as well.
I wouldn't go into the strategy at that sort of semi-granular level. I'll go at a high level, which is very, very important. Whether you're a startup, whether you're somebody in this career, whether you are a user of this product, today this sort of sector is changing, even from a business standpoint at a quarterly basis. It's not on a 5-year basis. It's not on a year basis. It's changing on a quarterly basis. Your entire business can, exponentially grow or literally fall down within a quarter. So research is extremely important. Whoever says you need to have 4%, 5% of your budget in research is, on a trajectory downhill. Research is absolutely important. You need to be at the cutting edge, at the bleeding edge of things. And even if you're not working there, you need to know what is happening. I'll just give you a simpler example where it's not even about being at the bleeding edge, but how fast this works. So last year, ChatGPT came out, Y Combinator, which is one of the big startup, one of the biggest startup incubator system. Most of the companies came as ChatGPT wrappers. At that time, ChatGPT then further opened up their APIs, etc., to GPT builders. Now, 70% of those companies lost their moat. And for the listeners, by moat, what we mean is their intrinsic safety mechanisms around the business. So these sort of things can happen every day. It's the same thing in careers, right? So when you're getting into careers as well, what you know today, let's say I'm a computer vision expert, right? And I can detect certain things in computer vision very well. Literally in 3 months, you might have a generative system where for, I don't know, $25 a month, a company can now hire that to create the base layer for these systems. And then you're out of a job. So it's not about really, obviously you become a semi-specialist in what you do, but you have to be absolutely flexible and keep growing along, and you have to grow in the direction where it is going. So you need to be research led and research aware every single day. So we talk about lifelong learning, right? this, I think, also is triggering lifelong learning for a lot of us in companies, a lot of us as researchers, and people who want to come into this space, at least for now.
I couldn't agree more. I think you combat anxiety by doing something about it and not by skirting away from the problem. And I think there isn't really an age limit as to which your brain still works, and you can learn, and you can learn by doing, learning by research. Obviously, both of you are go-getters and have a strong personality, a lot of success in your field. But I think that's a message that should resonate with everyone. I'd like to ask one last question. It's an open-ended question. Take it as you want. But what's next for yourselves and the Otermans Institute? Where do you want to get to over the next few years? And perhaps some of the listeners could reach out and help you get there.
So we are a foundational AI company. Our focus right now is teaching, and it will be at least for the next 3 years, absolutely as a hyper focus. But because we are a foundational AI company, we are vertically integrated. We are working with our own specialist models, which we have, and we are, hitting products with that. So one of our products is the digital human teachers that's teaching in universities right now. Our youngest product is Steady AI, that's for children between the age of 3 to 7, 3 to 9, teaching key stage 1 and 2 subjects. So whilst we are going to be throwing out products out there, intrinsically, we are the AI that teaches. And I think in the next 3 years, you're going to see our AI being plugged in as the specialized AI in a lot of other platforms, like an existing MOOC platform or a digital learning platform may use our system as a digital AI teacher, which we have already done and experimented with. And I think there is an opening for that. Anybody who's looking at this segment, because generalist models have their market, but in certain aspects, you require the specialist models. And teaching, especially for bigger institutions, etc., where they want to keep their domain expertise, their data, etc., inbound, and they want the best out there, not the generalist out there. There is a huge market potential here, and the same is for other, niche industries like different segments of medicine, not even one, and law, for instance. I know a lot of big work is going to come there, etc. Pauldy, do you want to end this with something?
I just have sort of one long sentence, I think, sort of to further develop, enhance our AI models that then can lead to even more products. And so being recognized as, globally leading the AI in education space as a specialized AI field. That would be my point.
Wonderful. And perhaps we can get back to you on the podcast at some time to see how you guys are doing. In the meantime, thank you, Pauldy. Thank you, Dev. I love this conversation, learned a ton, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Have a lovely weekend.
Well, folks, that's all for this week. Stay cool, stay positive,